So viewers, as part of this whole series into trying to explain the backdrop of the events that have happened since Pahalgam and our major strikes on Pakistan, we have with us today General GD Bakshi. In the last few days, I was telling General Bakshi that that is the most famous and popular background that he is sitting in, and his analysis is fantastic. Where he is sitting, he's got the insignia of the Romeo Force there behind him, and there is a reason he puts up this insignia. In this discussion, viewers, it's very important because we are going to talk about whether we are becoming a military superpower, and we're going to put statistics, numbers, research, understanding, graphics, so that this can become your explainer into whether we are becoming a military superpower. And the reason we are asking this question is because, General Bakshi, I'm sure your generation as well as mine, you know, we are 90s college graduates, and we always felt very bad when our country was becoming economically stronger, but the militaristic mindset was not there. It was always this mindset, aman ki asha, sabke saath theek leke chalo, don't take chances with Pakistan, be friends with China. And despite all the lessons of history, all that we learnt of, we were not a hard nation with a militaristic mindset. And this is a very important thing for any country to have, because viewers, and I'll listen to General Bakshi later, but I'm setting my introduction. What is my view? My view is that power projection equals power. If there is no power projection, if we are going to be affected immediately, if some other country like Pakistan says, listen, we have a new low nuclear threshold, which means at the slightest provocation we'll drop a nuclear bomb on you, and we here in Delhi and Mumbai and Kolkata get very scared with that and say, oh my God, let's not take chances, the irrational country. You have to call their bluff, and to call their bluff in a clinical and military way. Plus, there has to be a focus as a nation. We have to be pro-army. We have to be militaristic. There is a Gandhian perspective, of course, in the past, but this is not the 1940s. This is 2025. That Gandhian approach, in my view, is good for a political situation, but not good for a conflict situation. And so, viewers, I think we have brought in that Gandhian point of view into matters of the military, which is dangerous. That has its own place, but it doesn't have a place in a conflict situation, in a rapidly evolving world where technology and technological might is being brought into the forces. So I think we have to have a change of mindset in 2025. And I respect whatever the Gandhians are and their view of the world. But if we are to succeed as a nation in the future, I would say that more than Gandhi, it should be Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose who should be our ideal. I have no doubt about it. So there is a political philosophy which Republic has. We are a center-right news network. We are very clear. We are not neutral between India and Pakistan. And we believe that we will grow faster, economically also, if we are powerful militarily. The question in this podcast to answer is, are we becoming a military superpower, General Bakshi? Or are we a large military power? Are we a great military power? Are we a middle military power? Where exactly do we stand? Can we become a military superpower, or are we already one? What are the criteria of being a military superpower? These are the takeaways I want people to have. So your introductory remarks on this subject, sir.
Excellent, Arnab. I think you framed the problem so very well. You know, the historical experience of our freedom struggle, inclined us towards the Gandhian path of non-violence, non-cooperation, something like an Arab Spring, right? And you very rightly pointed out that even at that stage, there was the militaristic mindset of Bose, right?
Yeah.
We adopted the credo Ahimsa Parmo Dharma, which comes from the Shanti Parv of the Mahabharata, but we know we are taught only the first half of it. The second half of that same shloka says, Ahimsa Parmo Dharma, Dharma Hinsa Tathayava Cha. Violence in the protection of Dharma is superior. That is blanked out. So we needed a change of the mindset, and that change of the mindset has come. You asked a direct question. Let me give you a direct answer. Have we become a military superpower?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
With the fifth Indo-Pakistan round, we have shown to the whole world, showcased to the whole world, Arnab, a set of capabilities which are still sinking in. America is shocked. So is Russia. So is China. Pakistan can deny all that it wants. It is licking its wounds, Arnab, and those are deep wounds. Arnab, not, we have created the equivalent of the Iron Dome. You see, and we have our, navigation satellites of our own up there. We have integrated the Navik set of satellites, you
Sir.
know, with artificial intelligence. We have put together a sandwich of the S-400 Triumph surface to air missiles, range 400 kilometers. Next comes the Barak long range SAMs, jointly developed with Israel, 150 kilometers, right? Then we have the Akash 1, Akash 2, then we have the V-Shorads, and then we have the Legacy L-70 Zu-23 guns, which have been upgraded indigenously. All this has been put together in that Akash Tir system based upon artificial intelligence. Arnab, because we have our own satellites, we are not dependent on GPS of the Americans, we are not dependent on the GPS GLONASS of the Russians. We have our own. We have our own. And because it is a small footprint, it is very accurate. The information that it gives to our air defense components is giving us a CEP, circular error of probability of 1 meter. And this capability is also available to our offensive, components, including missiles, including rockets, including bombs, including drones.
Correct.
You've seen how using the Starlink of Musk, the Ukrainian satellites are hitting as far as the Ukrainian drones are hitting at Moscow and beyond. How is it possible? Because of absolute accurate, ground picture, absolute accurate navigation. And GPS can be jammed, GLONASS can be jammed. Nobody knows the frequencies of this thing. You have created a revolution in military affairs. In the military field, there are two components where the revolution has occurred: air defense and drones. Right, Arnab? Air defense and drones. So, in both these components, we have shown the world's a type of capabilities which is astonishing. Our Iron Dome, Indian Iron Dome, is as good, if not better, than the Israeli. Israelis are just defending 28,000
So,
square kilometers. We are defending millions of square kilometers, the entire
yeah,
western front from Kashmir to Kutch.
yes.
And hardly a single missile has gone through. Our interception
And we
rate
have
has
not
been
even
well
used
over
this.
90%.
We've not even used the S-400 yet. The point viewers to understand when General Bakshi says today, we have become a military superpower, is just keep one thing in mind, that in terms of showcasing our technological ability, we have not showcased even 10%, because we have not been required to showcase that even 10%. Now imagine if we have given Pakistan such a bloody nose and a bloody face at the end of 3 days, imagine what we would have done if we were to enter into a 50-day war with them like we entered during Kargil. Kargil was a localized conflict. Please remember, viewers, the context setting is very important. This is not a localized conflict. This is not happening in a one particular 50 by 50 kilometer area. This is a widespread conflict because Pakistan opened the entire Indian western border. The important thing is, General Bakshi, what I found very, very interesting is that why I believe we become a military superpower. If you look at the comparison of what we did to the Chinese supplied air defense systems, we bypassed and we jammed their air defense systems, completing this mission in 23 minutes using Rafale, scalp missiles, hammer bombs. A combination of all of this means that we are basically demonstrating that we have much more superior technology. We don't have a technological edge. There is no comparison between the Pakistanis and us when it comes to technology in this. And on the other hand, our multi-layered air defense system, which includes what you call the Akash, the Akash Tir system, the Akash Tir system, this is such an effective system. We didn't know we had it. This time we saw in the conflict that it shot down hundreds, maybe thousands of drones and missiles, and it showed that we have very strong, advanced defense system. But we never showcased it. We never knew about it. There was no public conversation about it. See, we talk about Israel because Israel showcased it. And the conversation became, oh my God, Israel has got the incredible Iron Dome system. But we, without using S-400, simply with Zu-25s or Zu-30s and the Akash Tir system, we were extremely successful. Now, does that place us higher than the Israelis in your view, in terms of air defense protection, sir?
You see, a number of experts are saying even the Israelis haven't done it, even the Americans haven't done it. Arnab, let me be upfront and straightforward, right? In Ukraine, they are using American air defense systems like the THAAD and the Patriots. Their kill rates vary between 70 to 80%. The Russians, with their combination of their layer of weapons, S-400s and upwards, they are achieving kill rates of 85%, sometimes a bit more. The Israelis against Iran, demonstrated performance I'm talking of, against Iran achieved 97%, 99%, right? They are also not totally leak proof, even though have a much smaller target to defend. India has millions of square kilometers to defend. And with that, to match the Israeli rate of attrition is a technological feat that hasn't sunk in, Arnab. Nobody is talking about it. It is a revolution in military affairs, thanks to our scientists who have done it, thanks to Manohar Parikar, who started this, Arnab. He started all this. He was he was an IIT grad, tech savvy. So he started this, and this involves artificial intelligence. Everybody is talking of chat, GPT, and this, that, and the rest. This is much more than that. It is a quiet revolution that has occurred. We haven't gassed about it, but now it is there for the world to see. It cannot be denied. It cannot be wished away. Right? And about the S-400, Arnab, I'll just make a small correction. We've not wasted the S-400s in intercepting, their drones, etc.
2 kilo drones.
We've used it to intercept some prime value targets, like I am given to understand the Fateh 1 tactical ballistic missile, which they had fired towards Delhi. There is no way of knowing whether it has a nuclear warhead or a
Is that the one which came down near Sirsa?
Sirsa, that is the one.
What was it? What did they fire? What did they fire there? What did they fire?
Fateh tactical ballistic missile, 250 kilometers range and more.
What kind of payload? What kind of payload would it carry, sir?
It can carry a nuclear payload. It can carry a conventional warhead. That was the tricky thing.
What do you think it carried?
Now do you understand?
What do you think it carried, sir?
Perspective.
What do you think it carried?
Sorry?
What do you think it carried?
It can carry a nuclear payload. It can carry a conventional warhead. The only way to find out is when it either goes up, boom, or it is shot down. It was shot down by a combination of our S-400s, by a combination of our, Prithvi air defense, ballistic missile defense shield. You see, and a whole sub cheese was thrown at it. The S-400s were also used to shoot down some Pakistani planes over Pakistan, right? And along with our BVR
these air defense systems all have BVR, in other words, beyond visual range capability, which means they can hit a target 400 kilometers away, which means we can hit down a Pakistani jet sitting in India within Pakistani territory.
Absolutely right you are. That means when a plane takes off, the S-400 has a detection radar range of 600. That means not only the whole of Pakistan, it can look into Afghanistan also, right? And when any plane rises from any Pakistani airfield, if it is detected, it can be shot down by the S-400s and a combination of our beyond visual range air-to-air missiles like the Astra 1. The Astra 2 is just coming in. The Astra 3 is on the about to be delivered, I suppose, within a year, right? And then we have the Meteor BVR missiles on the Rafale, 180 to 200 kilometers range, right? The Pakistanis are making a song and dance, and so are the Chinese, that their J-10C with the PL-15, you know, they're claiming has knocked out one of our Rafales. All our Rafale pilots are absolutely safe here, Arnab, and we are just waiting. Yes, we have taken one or two, I think, hits, which is natural. You go for a major war, then you don't pussyfoot around,
Okay,
then you
so
go for it.
I agree with it. Now, question is, sir, that again might go back to the basic question: Are we a military superpower? I've always been, as a kid, since a kid, very interested in numbers, sir, and comparisons and relative strengths. But when it comes to the army, it doesn't quite matter that we have an army that is bigger in size, a military. An army with 1.2 million plus active personnel is actually a bigger army than Russia's 1 million personnel army.
Absolutely.
It is the world's second largest army in numbers. But
Yeah.
you see the Russian army, is it got more exposure, global exposure, whether it is in Syria, whether it is in Ukraine, right? And it's also enhanced with the private armies of the Wagner group, I don't know where that exists, which allows it to project global influence without taking the hit. So while carrying an element of deniability. So my question is, in the Ukraine war, I believe that somewhere, sir, the weaknesses of the Russian army also came out, which is morale issues, very high attrition rates, uh, logistical failures, and people said, oh, their equipment is also outdated, right? But yet they are a huge military superpower because they projected their power externally and it's followed up with diplomacy. The broad military superpower would also require some amount of geostrategic power, sir, some amount of technological edge. How do you compare our army to, say, Russia's, or our army to China's? I feel China is a bit of a paper tiger. They have more personnel active than us. There are 2 million people there, but they never fought a real war, and their navy is all concentrated around the South China Sea. So how do you compare these three countries? I just want you to do a little comparison, sir, between Russia.
A
I'm not
SWOT
bringing the
analysis.
Americans in, between
Excellent.
Russia, China, and India, sir.
Look, Arnab, there is an unfortunate tendency that there is a lot of Western propaganda, disinformation, information warfare that has been utilized or used against the Russians to give a picture of a pathetic disarray and all that. I'm afraid that's not true. That's not true. What the mistake the Russians made was they did not fight as per their standard doctrine to start with,
And
right?
what is their standard doctrine?
The standard Russian doctrine is mass and high tech. You know, in the Second World War, they used to put their tanks in echelons. First echelon. When that is written off, second echelon. That's written off, third echelon. Then the operational maneuver group, mass. That is how they drove the Germans back from the gates of Moscow to Berlin and destroyed Berlin, man. So they have been using mass and high tech. Their equipment is rugged but reliable. The Kalashnikov is a world beater design. The T-90s, T-72s have performed well in combat. But the problem they had was that to start with, they started the invasion with 150,000 strong force, depending upon their technology, overmatching technology as they thought, right? Which edge the Americans and the NATO soon they supplied hell of a lot of weapons from
To the
2014
Ukrainians?
onwards,
Yep.
and they had more or less countered that technological superiority, brought it to a rough equivalence advantage on the Russian side, advantage on the Russian side. Now, the simple fact is they went in with 150,000 against the Ukrainian army, which was 250,000 to start with, mobilized and has become 750,000 to 1 million. You know, So after the initial offensive, they reached the gates of Kyiv. The Americans said, oh, logistical failure. Nothing of that sort. They had the talks in Belarus and in Turkey, and as a goodwill gesture, they had agreed to withdraw from Kyiv because they said our real objectives are not Kyiv. We want the Donbass, we want Luhansk and Donetsk, and the land bridge to Crimea. They wanted to secure that. So they had withdrawn from Kyiv. It was termed as a logistical disaster. You know, I mean, a lot of wish fulfillment in that particular thing. The Russian army, then after it had captured most of what it had initially sought to achieve, Russian speaking areas of Ukraine, Donetsk, Luhansk, right? Land bridge to Crimea, all secured. All ports in Ukraine secured, less Odessa. Entire
Yeah,
coastline
but how
taken.
do you
You
compare?
know,
My question was, how do you compare India, Russia, China? What's your
okay.
SWOT
So,
analysis between these three countries?
so let me start with the broad parameter. Indian Army, second largest army.
Second largest army.
Large amount of Russian-based equipment. So if the
Yes.
Russian equipment does well, so has ours, and with a hell of a lot of indigenous, equipment now. Fourth largest navy, fourth largest air force. India is a nuclear power. India is a space power of consequence. India is the fourth largest economy in the world, heading to be the second largest. In economical terms, we are bigger than Russia.
Much
Don't
bigger,
you
much
forget
bigger.
that. You know, we are bigger than Russia. Okay. So, to that extent, the Russian army is heavily combat tested. So are we. So are we. We are one of the most combat tested armies in the world. Now, coming on to the Chinese army. At 2 million, it is the only army that, outmans us in terms of size, right? The problem with the Chinese army is the last war they fought was 42 years ago in Vietnam, where they got a bloody nose.
So they've got no combat experience. Why?
They have no combat experience. Their chairman of the Central Military Commission, vice chairman, he has the only guy who's left around with two or three more officers who's seen a war. The rest of them have been their high mark of a Chinese military officer's career. You know, is what, Arnab? Doing a parade in Beijing. A parade, Republic Day parade equivalent in Beijing. Apropos the Chinese equipment, which was a big question mark, I'm afraid this war, the fifth India Pakistan round, has been a bit of a PR disaster for the
For the
Chinese
Chinese.
equipment. The radars don't work. They fail to detect the Iranian missiles. They fail to detect our cruise missiles. Their HQ-9 and HQ-16, which are derivatives of the Russian S-300 surface-to-air missile, has failed to down negligible aircraft. Negligible. The exact figure we'll know in a couple
But the
of days.
Chinese
I
Navy,
don't think it will go more than one or two.
But the Chinese Navy is much bigger. They have 425 vessels. We have 294. We are much bigger than Pakistan. There's no comparison. They have just 114. But we have only two aircraft carriers, Vikramaditya and Vikrant. We have destroyers, corvettes, frigates, submarines.
Now, I'll tell you
We
the
have a
number.
blue water navy, but how do we compare to the Russians and Chinese in our navy capabilities, sir? I'm just
Naval
trying to get the relative
capabilities,
mix right in my mind.
the Chinese Navy of more concern to us because the Russian Navy will be friendly. The Chinese Navy is the largest navy in the world in terms of number of warships, not necessarily capital warships. The USA has more. 11 aircraft carrier battle groups they have, to China's three, they are going on to six. We are also getting our third aircraft carrier battle group is now under construction, right? We have two aircraft carrier battle groups. We have 18, conventional submarines. We have three nuclear submarines, right? We have 13 missile destroyers, 14 missile frigates. These are the capital battleships. We're not talking of offshore patrol vessels and corvettes and things like that, patrol boats. No. So in these sub-chiefs, we have this. The Chinese have three aircraft carrier battle groups. They are getting on to two more, which will be five. They are still not there. But the problem with the Chinese Navy is, Arnab, they have got their Eastern Front, which is their primary threat and primary front. They have to deal with Taiwan, they have to deal with Japan, they have to deal with Philippines, and to cap it all, they have to deal with the United States of America. Okay, that Navy has got 11 carrier battle groups to China's 3. So, I mean, what resources can it divert towards you? And if it tries to divert resources towards you, they have to come via the Straits of Malacca, Tunga, Sunda, and those 3 straits in the Malaysian, archipelago, I mean, the group of islands. We keep a constant watch on them with our satellites, with our Boeing, maritime surveillance aircraft, and now with the Predators which are coming, right? They start coming through that narrow bottleneck, we'll blast the hell out of the Chinese Navy. It won't reach the Indian Ocean or the
So
Bay of Bengal. You
I
forget
have
the Arabian Sea.
I have a view that we are no longer dealing with a Pakistan border or a Pakistan LOC. It's a China border and China LOC. We are dealing with the China encirclement. We are not. We must stop separating. We must separate this, remove this notion in our own mind that somewhere we're dealing with the Pakistanis. Viewers, we are not dealing with the Pakistanis. We're dealing with China plus one. China plus Pakistan.
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
that is
Yeah.
the case, when we compare our Navy, that's why in this conversation, I'm not even referring to Pakistan very much. I'm referring to India as a military superpower. In that scheme of things, we don't need to think about Pakistan. So we have very good stealth platforms. We also got INS Vishakhapatnam, frigates like Nilgiri. We have got Scorpion class submarines. We have the newly inducted INS Vakshir also. And Arighat is the nuclear powered ballistic missile submarine. So we have very
Submarine.
dangerous,
Yeah.
we have dangerous equipment with us. We are very good. We are combat ready. But if we were to, in any situation, lock in on Karachi, would they not lock in behind us? Or are they fully and largely concentrated around the South China Sea? See,
That is their precise problem. Arnab,
so
in naval warfare,
can we use our allies and our alliances, our political equations in the Southeast Asian region better for it to provide
why do you
some
think we are
deterrence?
members of the Quad? Of course, the quadrilateral of democracies is Japan, United States, India, Australia. So when push comes to shove, you think they'll sit out and watch? But even if they don't come, that is the point I'm trying to make, Arnav. Even if they don't come, in naval warfare, a criticality is choke points. A navy may be huge, but if it has to funnel through a choke point to get at you, and the choke points are the Malacca Straits, the Sunda Straits, right? Through these choke points, when the huge mass of the Chinese Navy is trying to funnel in, it becomes highly vulnerable to destruction. Destruction. They won't reach the Indian Ocean in that case. They'll be tackled well beyond near Malaysia. Well beyond near Malaysia. And by that time, the United States, you think it won't jump into the fray? Even if it does not, we can make sure they don't come in. And especially in a short war context, we can make sure that China doesn't interfere when we blockade Karachi. So that's what I keep saying, that the greatest relative superiority that we have over Pakistan is in terms of the Indian Navy, right? And the Indian Navy can apply pressure on the sea flank in a manner that could be decisive. Decisive. You must apply your strengths against the enemy's weaknesses. Our strength is the air defense network. Our strength has proved to be the Air Force offensive capabilities. We have used them. Have you noticed one very new thing, paradigm shift in South Asia, Arnab, military South Asian matters? The Air Force has become the first responder.
So the Air Force is most combat ready. And when we discuss the military superpower equation, I now want to go into the Air Force. Again, the point would be we have some 2,000 aircrafts. So what we become is the fourth largest air force in the world in terms of number of aircraft. But then there's an argument also, we must look at the pros and the cons, that a lot of our air force is also a little outdated. We're still fighting the Mirages, some of which are 1969, 1971, 72 vintage, more than 50 years old. We have to replenish this pretty fast. We have potentially active situations in the future with China. So we've got Hashimara, we've got Northeast, we've got Jorhat, we've got the whole Assam sector. But we have our strengths and weaknesses on this. Now, how do you view our Air Force ability? Now, a Russian Air Force is very, very big, but they are, so to give you a sense of numbers, viewers, Russia would have some 3,700 fighter jets or aircraft. We would have about 2,000, right? The Chinese would have about 3,200. And they have the J-20 stealth, they have J-16, and they have got the transport planes. We have everything that we need. But I presume now to gain equality with, equal position with China or with at least a number of aircraft, we have to bring in about 500 planes very quickly, minimum, into our arsenal. That there's a strong case to be made for that. And if that means that we have to increase our defense budget from 2% to 3%, so be it. Absolutely, so be it.
Long overdue.
We can't keep becoming squeamish about how much money we are spending. As a nation, I think we should have a 40 to 50% jump in our defense budget going forward next year. This has explained that clearly to the world. We need to do that.
Yeah.
Sir.
You hit the nail on the head. All of us veterans were extremely worried that the sanctioned strength of the Indian Air Force is 42 squadrons. On ground, we have 31. So quantitatively, there's a huge shortfall. This was worked out considering a two-front war, China, Pakistan together. Right? China, Pakistan together. What we are facing is that China is helping. So it is a one reinforced front, Pakistan front, where the Chinese are behind the scenes, giving them their Duao satellite support, their missiles, their equipment, but they aren't putting boots on the ground. They're not getting in the fight directly, right? But definitely they are there in the shadows, in the background. The point to note, Arnab, is that the Chinese defense budget is 4 times ours. Ours is around $80 billion. They are, touching $300 billion. And that is the announced part of the budget. There are hidden budgets also. You have a 4-time gap in the budget, right? In terms of the fighter squadron strength, the Chinese have about 2,000 fighters, which are 4.5 generation equivalent. They've done away with all legacy fighters. When we mention 2,000 aircraft in the Indian inventory, that includes transports, helicopters, everything, right? So our fighters are around 700 to 800, right? Quite obviously, there is a shortfall, and that is what was worrying us veterans sick. That is why we were hollering for the Rafales. We were hollering that we must develop our AMCA soon. The Americans under Biden had stabbed us in the back on the Tejas. We were supposed to use our Tejas to replace all MiG-21. All that hadn't happened. That is why at the start of this conflict, we were a worried lot. A pretty worried lot. I'm now sharing this with you. But the simple fact is, thank God our indigenous scientists, they have technologically enhanced, with the Akash Tir, with our own navigation satellites, with the improvement in accuracy, both of offensive and defensive armaments that we have, they have given us a quantum jump that has been startling for the world to behold, right? But that still means that after this conflict is over, for God's sake, get your act together. Like you said, increase your defense budget.
Increase the defense budget,
less than 2% of the GDP, which includes my pension, by the way, right? And we need to take it up at least to 3%.
At least to 3%. We must.
At least to 3%.
We must be ready to do that. If we take it up.
The amazing thing is that because of this indigenous technological quantum jump, we have not only managed, we have done superlatively well. But we should have used this opportunity to kick Pakistan in, end this problem once and for all, splinter it into five micro states, go for Baluchistan. We could have done that. It was a historic opportunity, which I think we have missed because of lack of total preparation. Total
It will
preparation.
happen in the
You
future.
know, you,
I think that another question which comes to my mind when we talk of whether
yeah,
we are a military superpower, I think the reason, I mean, you are saying that we are. I felt we became a military superpower, sir, on the night of 9th and 10th. Because
yeah,
what we
yeah,
did that day is that we struck 11 air bases of a nuclear armed country in a single operation, destroying 20 to 25% of their air force assets. And people are now saying that we've hit a nuclear site, I mean, nuclear arsenal. That shows that we have ourselves crossed the nuclear red line. We don't care anymore. I mean, like, whether this is going to be a nuclear red line or not, if they are hiding their nuclear assets somewhere, as our Air Force said, our job is to hit, not to count the body bags. But this is a level of response which is being noticed everywhere around the world. The whole global media, global think tanks, the strategic community globally in universities have all seen that here is an army which can strike a nuclear armed nation's air bases and quietly wait to see what response they can have. So, somewhere, this becomes a precedent for the future. Regardless of what political leadership is there in the country, we have become a country that has, I would say, beyond Israeli ability to take a decision to hurt the enemy. This has not been seen before. So it's not just numbers, General Bakshi. It's also intent, political thinking, morale, and what I would call a militaristic attitude among the people. How do people get a militaristic mindset? Is when they see their nation in motion. If this country
absolutely.
is going to see in 2025 that Pakistan is hitting us right, left, and center, carrying out terrorist attacks, and we have this Gandhian philosophy that an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth will make the whole world blind and toothless. But it also is the case that if you are slapped on one cheek and you think that it is very nice to be slapped on the other cheek, and that grand gesture of yours will be appreciated by a jihadi Pakistan, it's not going to be the case. So somewhere, I really think, General Bakshi, this hit that we did, the last one, Sargodha you mentioned, sir, Rawalpindi, Chaklala, this somewhere hurt them, the Pakistanis, and not Pakistanis alone. This has gone to China, that this country, India, is a damn care nation. You hit it, so the Chinese will notice it, the Russians will notice it. And all of this was happening when Putin and Xi Jinping were busy
Witnessing the parade.
witnessing the parade. So the message we have sent to Russia is that your friend Erdogan is hitting us. Putin and Erdogan walking hand in hand, images I will never forget. I think a military superpower begins on the premise कि आपके साथ कोई नहीं है, आप अकेले हैं. There's nobody to stand with you. You fend for yourself. Today we've told Erdogan, Putin, Xi Jinping and Trump that we will do what we want to do. If you're with us, great. If you're not with us, too bad. So that also makes us a military superpower. Do you agree with this assessment? So we are not a passive nation anymore. We are not a passive nation anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Arnab, let me put one thing in perspective for you. For long, Israel and the United States have been wanting to hit the Iranian nuclear capability. Have they done so? Have they succeeded? If what has happened, at the Sargodha Air Base, Chaklala Air Base, Rawalpindi, between Rawalpindi and Islamabad, there is nuclear radiation there. The American aircraft, Beechcraft B510, that came to check radiation levels, has found nuclear radiation.
I heard
The
about this.
Egyptians have sent a plane load IL-76 load of boron, which is used to tamp down when there is a reactor meltdown,
Yeah.
when there is nuclear radiation. There is radiation there. Arnab, people will start falling sick and having cancer in Pakistan shortly. And then they can do all the bhangla that they want. Look, America and Israel have not been able to hit the Iranian nuclear facility so far. With what has happened, we may admit it, we may not admit it, but the radioactive proof is there on the ground. And as I see it, our BrahMos missiles have, 6 of them have been put down the tubes of those tunnels housing the warheads, and their radioactive material has spilled out. We've used spice jets which penetrate deep bunker busters, right? And they burst deep within. We've used it to defang their nuclear capability. We are not tom-tomming it. But that is exactly what seems to have happened. We are awaiting for confirmation and we are trying to guard against any disinformation which is trying to play the nuclear card to make us stop. But now we won't stop, Arnab. Now you are clear. The Prime Minister has told you nuclear blackmail is the last thing that will restrain us from hitting you back harder, stronger, longer. You remember those catchphrases that came out
totally.
from the PMO? Harder, stronger, longer.
Yeah. And
So,
sir,
Arnab, we've done more than the United States and Israel, man.
yeah, sir,
Stand up
there's
and be counted.
one thought in my mind that to be a military superpower, you need to have some influence in your armed striking capability in other countries also.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, Russia did it through Wagner Group and US did it through the Mujahideen and through others by engaging or supporting or sponsoring private armies in Africa and parts of the world. I'm not specifying. I'm not saying this is an ethical thing to do or a good thing to do. But, in national interest, since you said we're a larger economy too, should we build some proxy abilities too, more actively, so that we can use that as leverage in other parts of the world against our enemies or potential enemies?
Arnab, in the covert category, you have what is called in the American context the Rangers, their Delta Force, and then you have the Green Berets. It is the Green Berets which are the equivalents of the Wagner group, though I
Yeah,
mean
yeah, yeah.
they use insurgent groups
Private
local
armies,
to.
basically what
Uh,
General Bakshi and I are
so
talking
I
about right
very
now
much
are
think I
private
agree with
armies.
you. I agree with you. There are a lot of gung ho veterans, some of which come on your screens, Arnav. They've got, they've got a lot of guts and gung ho. So these boys, we can easily create a Wagner style group, and I think it's about time that we did so. Covert intervention capabilities are the need of the hour. We have the special forces. We need a Wagner style capability. We have the Rangers, we have the special forces, but we need a deniability. We need
But what we
deniability
will
in terms
also
of the
need,
Wagner.
what we should also need, is that we need the equivalent of a massive Pentagon national security infrastructure in the country with independence and thinking. I mean, that is also required. We need the foresight, we need the minds, we need to put it all together. So, viewers, this conversation that I have had with General Bakshi is very important, because while we have sent an unambiguous message to Pakistan, the big transformative thing in what has happened over the last 1 week, 10 days, or 2 to 3 weeks of planning has been that we have become a militaristic country. We are a democracy, but we need a militaristic mindset. Now, that's a state of mind that we are in. There is no point being a passive country that idolizes Gandhi in everything to do with military matters. Gandhi was not a military genius. So the application of a Gandhian philosophy in all aspects of life can prove to have a negative aspect. There are things about Gandhi which must be appreciated, but the army is not about a Gandhian mindset. Gandhi was not a field marshal, and Gandhi would have not won a war. Non-violence must not be glamorized up to a point where we believe that we will win wars without hurting someone. The way to peace is only through force and the ability to use force in national interest. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. General Bakshi is a national asset. I really think people like him should serve the country in strategic roles as well. We are proud of him and we thank him for joining us on this very informative podcast. General Bakshi, thank you so much.